Let me take these chains off. Let me take this harness off. I'm pouting.
It's very much giving Carrie Big energy from like season 1.
Aramide. You're right. I did not.
Please, it is.
You are right.
Because that's all Carrie would do is like chase after this man. Like that's
Hello, this is the Black by Reality podcast. I'm your host, Nicole Weaver, and we're going to talk about And Just Like That season 2. Before we get started, though, I am going to introduce you to the co-host for this series. Today we're going to see Aramide Tinubu, a movie critic, an entertainment journalist, a cheese nibbler, and cancer. Hi, Aramide.
Hey Nicole, and hi everybody. I'm so excited to be talking about this. It's like my favorite ridiculousness.
It is. It was a lot, but
yes,
we're gonna get through it and dissect. But I guess to start off, what's your overall feelings about this episode?
So at first I was very much not into it. It started off for me very cheesy, but I think about halfway, because I will also preface this by saying I've been rewatching the original series. I'm on season 2,
Okay.
like halfway through season 2 of the original, which I've seen 1,000 times. So this just felt like very cheesy to me. But then something happens, which we'll get to like halfway through the episode, that kind of like recentered it. And I'll be fair, because I think when you go into like pilots or you go into season openers, it's always a little bit like unsettling. You don't quite know what's going on, but they managed to kind of glue it back together by the time that the episode wrapped.
Yeah. Jumping back into it, I was so excited. It was like sometimes a little jarring because I think, yeah, we have so much history with Sex in the City that you still kind of expect something. And then watching it, it dropped me back in it and was like, oh yeah, this is not Sex in the City. This is a new thing. And we're still getting to know it and following up on these new and familiar characters.
Definitely.
So I think we can now start going through beat by beat. We open with To Tiny Dancer. I was not
like,
ready.
What song is like? So the opener is also a montage of all the women like walking into their bedrooms,
And they look lovely.
They all look beautiful, but like, girl, why is this the song that was chosen for this?
Yeah, I don't necessarily get in a seductive mood with Tiny Dancer. But you know, we kind of get a vibe. Almost everyone seems to be happy in a relationship except for Dr. Naya. We see Dr. Naya in lingerie. I don't know if you get into lingerie to watch your shows at home alone, Aramide, but she gets all dressed up. She has her glass of wine. She sits down and she's going through her apps. Weirdly, she stops at Netflix, but you see Max right there.
It was so pointed. I think I saw Mekhi Phifer's. I think she was watching Soul Food, the movie, but I think that's a very like deep cut. So yeah. I think that's what she was watching. So, and I definitely don't wear lingerie at home. I do have some nicer house dresses as I've gotten into my 30s. Like, they're not muumuus. Like, I've gotten a little bit better about that. But am I going to wear lace to sit on my couch? Absolutely not. But good for her.
Yeah, good for her. Good for her. Through the montage of people getting it on, I can't help. I'm just gonna warn y'all. I'm gonna talk about every Che and Miranda scene in depth. Because I know a lot of people have their feelings, whether they feel like they betrayed Miranda's character. They had her kiss a lesbian one time, and she pretty much was like, "Oh, I'm straight" after that. But first of all, y'all, just because you kiss one person and it was not for you does not, like, that's an insane, that's like thinking of one bad kiss you had with a man and being like, men are just not for me. And like Che is very different from like the little skinny boy cut lawyer lesbian we saw when she hooked up. So I'm for it. I don't think they labeled Miranda as lesbian or bi or anything. I feel like her sexuality right now is just, I'm in love with Che, and Che is a non-binary person. And yeah, yeah. How do you
I agree. I think at first I was very jarred by it, and I think like that sort of kiss that she had with that woman was in the first season of Sex and the City. So this is 25 years ago at this point. And what's interesting is, so you think about this is the first movie, or I think it's the first movie when Steve cheats,
mm-hmm.
and then after that, like they haven't had sex in like a decade. So there's something going on there, obviously, for her to just be like, hey, like this is my homie for life, but you know, keep your pee that way versus feeling something for someone that like lights you on fire. I think Shay is kind of like a ridiculous person, but something happens in this episode that like softens my spirit toward them a little bit. I think the writers now kind of understand they didn't necessarily like put Che's best foot forward. So now we're seeing something a little bit different from them, which I do appreciate. And something there's obviously something that Miranda loves about them. And I'm happy. I didn't like the way she treated Steve last season, but I'm happy she chose herself. And I think that's so important because so many women and films in particular just stick it out and then you land in your grave beside somebody that you don't even F with like that. Like y'all cool, but you could have had a whole different life had you stepped out on faith, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I love Steve. Like, definitely, it is kind of hard to let go of that. But, like, yeah, their relationship was always, they were almost never really at the same level, and it thrived a lot because of Steve's devotion to Miranda, not
Mm-hmm.
necessarily like the other way around. And now we're seeing what it's like when Cynthia actually is devoted to someone. But yeah, to get back into the episode, my jaw dropped looking at Che and Miranda in the pool.
I thought that was really sexy, especially because you don't see that. I wasn't expecting, like after last season, how it kind of went down. I just wasn't expecting Miranda to have like a good time on this vacation. I thought it was gonna like kind of implode. She picked up her life, moved to LA to be with Che as they start their pilot. So yeah, I just wasn't expecting that. And like it's not perfect. We'll get there. But it was important. It was an important sequence. And I think and you see also a lot more of Cynthia's figure throughout this entire episode, which I also think is important because you never really get to see like women of a certain age, and it's not like nudity to just be nude. But I think it's important. Like she
Mm-hmm.
has a real body. She's like a person who is of a certain age. You just don't see that ever.
True. Next scene, we find out Carrie is officially hooking up with Franklin, the podcast producer. I recognized Ivan Hernandez from the last season of Never Have I Ever, so I was pretty happy about that. But this is kind of messy. It's a little messy.
As Miranda told her, like, if you fuck somebody you work with, essentially you're gonna lose your power. And I don't necessarily think it's that. I just think that like, you know, Carrie, there's other peens in Manhattan. Like, and I get why she wanted this one. He's very fine, very, very fine. But it's just too close for comfort. Like I remember she had some struggles even like getting the podcast, like getting into the podcast groove. It just feels a little sticky, especially as someone who like has had 30 plus years of dating woes in New York. Like I think she should, not to say that you should know better, but there's like other, you just never get your bread and your meat at the same place. Like you just shouldn't be doing that.
Agreed. We'll get more into that later. Carrie and Seema are going to the Met Ball. We find out. I was kind of shocked. We know Carrie is a fashion girly.
Mhm.
We know that. I don't think that just died later on in age, but she seems to not care. This is like just another party for her, where Seema has that very much like excited, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity energy. Um
I
yeah.
feel like I agree, but I also think ever since Big died, Carrie's just been very even, and I think I'm like not even used to that from her because when you go back and watch those early seasons of Sex and the City, she's like a very chaotic individual, like very like ridiculous. So I think losing Big like put her on a different like plane. But something also happens where I'm like, girl, like, I appreciated her for not going off. I will say that, and we'll talk about why. But she wasn't moved by this event at all. But I also, looking at this episode, she's not moved by much. If you like, maybe like she's cooking now, like eggs or whatever. As you know, she doesn't cook. She uses her stove for shoe storage. So like that seems the
Mhm.
only thing to kind of like tickle her pickle. It's like her little cooking that she's doing.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of hard though to get into it when your main character is like so blah. When she was off the wall in the beginning, I would have I kind of would love to see a messier like morning, honestly, because I feel like that would fit Carrie. She like I saw someone on TikTok say like she was shameless. Like
Yes, she do whatever she wanted. And I think it comes from like a little bit of maturity. And I remember last season she had that her neighbor downstairs was like kind of at that stage she was at 20 years ago. And I think kind of seeing that was like very shocking to her in some ways. And it also could just be like as someone who's like dealt with like a lot of loss, like grief is kind of very strange. And you kind of walk
mhm.
around like very normal or like very subdued. And then she might have a chaotic outburst, like when she beat Big in the head with those flowers. It's what he deserves. During their first
Mhm.
wedding day. So it might be coming. They could be setting us up for something like that because you're right. Like she's just so like almost flat in a way that
Yeah.
she doesn't even care what she's wearing to the Met. It's very crazy.
It's wild. Charlotte comes over with Richard Burton. I forgot about this dog's
He's
name. I
so
love
cute.
it though. They're walking down the street. I am loving Carrie's a huge hat. I'm not thrilled about like the white, like long sleeve and everything, but loved the hat. And they're talking. Things get a little meta of like, okay, our main girls aren't together anymore. And Charlotte's like, well, how big is his dick? I'm being Samantha. Oh, this is what Miranda would say. And it's like, oh, why? I know it, why we can't get Samantha, but why is Miranda not part of this? Like, can we get our girl on FaceTime?
I think it's interesting because it's trying to follow a pattern of friendship, which happens to me. Like I'm like the only friend left in New York. Thank you, Nicole, for leaving.
I'm sorry.
But I do think that type of thing happens, and from someone who, like a technical standpoint, is very annoying to be doing flip screens and like side screens and all that. I think they did it more smartly with Stanford's character, like when Carrie's wearing this beautiful robe later on, and someone's like, "Oh, that robe is
Mm-hmm.
so beautiful." She's like, "Oh, my friend Stanford gave it, mailed it to me from Japan." That was a more seamless way to incorporate the character.
Yeah.
God rest the actor. But the way that they like, I just would have rather her just appear to her cameo at the end of the season, which is supposed to happen, versus them trying to like overstuff. Because we've addressed it. Like we spent all of the first season
Mm-hmm.
of it like that, like trying to clobble together what went down between Carrie and Samantha, and that already just doesn't make sense. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So because Charlotte was there, she sees Franklin. Carrie makes it clear like this is like kind of a little casual thing. Next we see Lisa in her closet, which I love. I love that it's colorful and you just get so much out of her character. And then she has her little like work studio. We see her private school kids coming in asking her to do all these little tidbits, and then her husband is also coming in, and she seems very very overwhelmed. He keeps like trying to hit on her though, and yeah, he makes a comment to her of like, oh, why do you need to work so hard? I can finance your stuff. And he does this right in front of the daughter, and Lisa's like, I will beat your butt because I have my own education. I can do this. It doesn't seem like her husband gets it
Mhm.
in this episode.
Yeah. I think it's also interesting because, well, I'm so excited for Nicole Ari Parker. I've watched her for years, and I'm glad
Mhm.
she's finally getting the recognition she deserves from like quote unquote mainstream. But I
Mhm.
think they're setting her up for like a fall of a strong Black woman in a way,
Ooh.
because she's juggling so much, and her husband just kind of being like a willfully ignorant man. Like, what is it called? That they talk about how the men just don't do shit because they're worthless or whatever.
Oh, like
Willful incompetence,
incompetency.
yes. And he's not that bad. I won't like give him
Yeah.
that. But I feel like she's like, trying to be a mother, trying to be a wife. Like she's a documentarian. Like, so she's doing all these things. And I'm nervous for her because I feel like LTW's whole thing was like, this is a woman Charlotte was in awe of and like was desperate to be her friend because
Mhm.
she's so beautiful and so poised and she just has it all together and no one ever has it
Yeah.
all together like that. So I think that, as you said, if Carrie's going to be monotone, if Miranda's going to be in Los Angeles, if Charlotte is just going to be Charlotte's been consistent since season one. I think it's going to fall on kind of like LTW and Naya, which is so interesting, the Black women, to kind of be the messes of the season, in my opinion.
Ooh. She sips her drink.
We've only seen the first episode so far, so we'll
Yeah,
see.
I will say it's okay. I will say what the vibe that I got from this is that every little problem that was popping up was quickly being solved, and it felt almost like a sitcom than like an HBO drama, because it's like, where's the conflict in some of these relationships or situations? But it does feel, at least for Dr. Naya, that her issues are going to be a long-term arc, which I am excited to see. Um, and I guess it's because like newer characters is like we get to see like their new journeys, and they get to be flawed, but like there's always room for growth for sure. So I hope we get to see more out of like our existing characters. Obviously, don't break them up. Like, don't have someone cheat, but
No.
something. There's got to be something.
I think it's also interesting going back to LCW really quick. Her daughter comes in while she's like working in her closet
Mm-hmm.
and is trying to do this poem, and the daughter keeps getting interrupted. So I wonder if the conflict will kind of go through the daughter
Ooh,
because she's the only, like, she has two older sons and the husband, and this baby, like, she's not a baby, she's like maybe under 10, is like constantly being interrupted. So I wonder if they're gonna do something with that.
for sure.
Um, More than anything, because Lisa tries to set this example of this, like, so, but no woman could or should be doing everything. Like, don't
Absolutely.
ask me where your fucking tie is. Like, put on a contact. Like,
Truly. The next scene, Miranda calls Dr. Naya. She's excited. She's being a baby gay. Like, like I don't know how to explain it, but I don't think we see that many like baby gays in media, and obviously baby gays can be any age. But yeah, she's going to be in a sensory deprivation tank, which Dr. Na is like, that doesn't sound like you, which is, it's not like if we
no,
think of the original Miranda, but she's like, this is the new me. And she insists that Dr. Naya should go somewhere and, have a meal by herself. And I thought this is such an old school, like, advice, because I feel like I remember my mom saying you should be able to go to a restaurant or something, have a book, have a meal, and then it's like the old school fantasy that exactly what happens. A
Mm-hmm.
hot, well put together man is
Hi,
gonna.
Gary Dordan. Hey.
I was like, not this. I was like, what?
Hello. Yeah. If
Hello.
you've ever seen Janet Jackson's Again video, this is the man we talking about. Go see it.
Go see it after watching this for sure.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, we're not quite there yet, but you know, that was a very interesting scene between them. Once again, we're getting the newer character paired with an original one. What did you think of this scene?
I actually liked Myrna's advice only because Naya has been with her husband for like 20 years and he's off. Like, they had that whole conflict about having a baby and like they were struggling with fertility. And he's like, oh, I want a baby. Like, sorry, you don't want a baby ever. Like, grow up. And now he's on tour. And so she's just kind of like floundering a little bit. Like, that's very hard. And I think
Mhm.
Miranda's advice was sound like, hey, like, if all of New York, there's so many places in New York opening and closing all the time. Go to some new places by yourself, make some new memories. I think Miranda getting that damn sensory deprivation was ridiculous. Like, girl, what is this? Like, go get a massage because, like, what it looks so scary. First of all, I'm not even claustrophobic, but I'm not doing that. Like, please. And then why would she close the lid? I think you can. I've heard of these that you can leave the lid open, but she like gets trapped and she's so confused. And she has to like beat her way out of the damn. It was terrible. It looked terrible. It was not relaxing at all. Go get a massage and like relax.
I loved this. I loved the scene because like it kind of did give me Sex in the City. Like
Mm-hmm.
these actors put themselves out there doing sometimes scenes naked and giving us laughs.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's a very vulnerable thing for an actor to do. And her opening it and like flopping out the salines in her eye, and she's just like, fuck the new me, was so funny.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't make sense at all, but it was literally just there for comedy and I appreciated it.
I agree. I agree.
Next we see Che getting costume fitting. Apparently the studio wants them to be in blue bejeweled jacket with a blue stripe, and Che's just like, absolutely not. And we find out that Che's character is being styled after BD, a writer, and BD wants the character to be like a mix of them. BD also is played by non-binary actor Abby McGinney from Work in Progress. Love Work in Progress. If you haven't seen it, watch it. I was very excited about this.
It looks to me like obviously LA isn't quite what Che expected, and it never is because LA is trash. But I could see their trepidation in like you've gotten here finally, and now Hollywood is trying to make you be something that you're not, and that's
Mm-hmm.
that's very very scary for a creative in particular, especially you just worked so hard, and now you're like kind of being asked to put on a costume. It
Yeah,
sucks.
it does. We'll see. We'll see where this goes. Scene. Carrie goes out with Jackie, and we find out that his wife Smoke is making her dress for the Met. I found this unbelievable. Unbelievable that Carrie Bradshaw, who loves fashion, loves different designers, is going to go with someone who is brand new. I don't get what they're doing with the Carrie character. First of all, the podcast is just, I guess, I don't know if the podcast is supposed to be part of any network, but I'm still like, why couldn't the podcast be like part of Vogue? Like that would make sense and stuff.
Mhm.
I don't know who this character is, but it's wild. It's I guess admirable, but then I feel like this is also one of those check boxes that the writers are doing of like, how can we fit in more diversity because we've been so criticized in the past. And it's like, I'm sorry, Carrie, I don't know how much of an ally she is, but I'm not going to believe that she's going to give this Black woman a chance for the Met Gala.
And that's the thing. Like, I was trying to remember because I didn't rewatch the first season, but I was trying to remember if we ever heard of Smoke being in fashion, or if like it'd be different if she had like a boutique or something that Carrie had been to. We don't know nothing about Sistren, and we love Black women's, but like, and it was so bizarre. And I also feel like Jackie's just a very bizarre character, and I don't necessarily enjoy him either, because you don't even see, like, it kind of worked. It was like Che, Carrie, and Jackie on the podcast, but now it seems to just be Carrie's podcast. Like, nothing is it just doesn't make any sense. And so I'm like, oh, like, let's find like an Asian man and a Black woman, and like it doesn't make sense. It'd have been different, I think, if he was like, oh, Smoke is gonna help, like she's a stylist or a hairdresser or a makeup artist. But there's like literally no, like, I would be embarrassed to wear my fashions in front of Carrie Bradshaw, let alone make her even. Like,
yeah. Please. Yeah, it's wild. It's a huge leap for us to make, but we're making it. So next, Lisa and Charlotte are doing exactly what Carrie would be doing. They are getting dressed while people are working on their clothes. They're on these like beautiful podiums in front of Anthony. Apparently, the Met Gala's theme is veiled beauty. And yeah, Anthony is going to be Charlotte's date. He's so excited. They're so excited.
I think it's interesting. Like, this scene wasn't that interesting, but what was interesting is that in the middle of her fitting, Lisa has to run picking her daughter up from school because their nanny got sick. So I think this is gonna be something.
Totally.
And yeah, Anthony is like so excited about this, but then things don't quite pan out how he thinks.
Justice for Anthony.
Yes.
What are we doing here? But before we get to that, Rock and Lily tell Charlotte when she gets back at home that Harry thinks he's going to be her date to the Met Gala. He walks in, he has a top hat, and he's like, yeah, I've never been to prom, so this is my chance. And for some reason, he really wants to see Rihanna. Does he think he's going to get a threesome with Rihanna?
I don't even know why they made this a part of the story. Like, it gave me very much like middle-aged man with no friends, and like my only friend is my wife, and I don't know how to like be without her. So, and I also was kind of annoyed with Charlotte. Like, you've been like, why are you? I get not hurting your husband's feelings. Like, I like Harry a lot, but like, be like, oh no, I told Anthony. Like, why didn't you just say that? It gave me very much old school Charlotte, and I was like, okay, like, just tell him that he's not going. Like, he doesn't even know anything about the Met Gala. Like, what are you talking about? Take him to, like, I don't know, the aquarium or something, and let him wear his top hat. Truly, it was such a ridiculous like storyline, in my opinion. Like, why?
And that's what was giving sitcom. This is a sitcom storyline, flat out.
Because like, what? Like, it's just like why would you? No, like, if you're not coming, like, it's like, I'm not taking my man with me to Beyonce concert. Like, just go sit down.
Go sit down.
Eat some Fritos.
Absolutely. The next clip, we see Carrie in the studio. Someone calls in of like, I have a casual relationship, but how do I know if it's going to become romantic? And Carrie says, once a man breaks out of that cycle of what you're doing, you know he's going to want more. And Franklin looks like he has a little idea in his head. He invites her to a rooftop party on Tuesday.
Yeah, because the Met Gala is Monday. It's the first Monday in May.
Yeah. And she's like, oh, sure. So did you know then that she wasn't feeling it?
I couldn't really tell. This is such a different Carrie than what I'm used to, especially like jumping back from like 1999, 2000 to 2023. Carrie, excuse me, because I even thought her advice was like very sound and not like ridiculous like it normally would be. I think she was just processing, and I have been there where you like immediately react just to be polite, because there's nothing wrong with him. He's very fine and just like nice, but it was kind of, I think it took her off guard. I think going back to Miranda's advice, like, don't be, hunching down to where you work at with people you work with. So,
you know what also probably took off guard? That he did this right after work.
Yes. Like, he didn't call her. He didn't send her, like, send me a text message so I can be a little bit removed from the situation.
But I think that's why this whole situation is ridiculous. The whole thing. But anyways, later we see Che in bed waiting for Miranda. Okay, first of all, Che's posted up like this. And I looked closely and I'm like, Che's not tied up. Che's just having their arms on the headboard as if they are. So I'm like, okay. And Miranda makes a joke, is this like a cat toy or a strap on? And like, here's my thing. I was a little confused. I'm not gonna lie. I was also confused of like, is this? But it is. Full harnesses are a thing for that. And I don't know why Che, as the seasoned gay in the situation, is not up and helping her.
Like, so I was very confused as well. I was like, oh, like this isn't how I thought this was gonna go. But again, it's like this ridiculous harness that Miranda's like trying to struggle, put one foot in, and it's just a hot mess. Mm-hmm. But it goes back, like Che very much gave me like season 1 Che energy. Sorry, they are very much like just like unbothered, like they don't care about Miranda. Like I just felt like they always gave that energy. Not that they didn't care, but they could take Miranda.
They're oblivious.
Yes,
they're very oblivious.
And it was so cringe the first season to watch Miranda like run after them,
which still happens in this episode.
And so it just very much gave me like, oh, like we're still here, like this is extremely uncomfortable.
Yeah, it's very uncomfortable. So, well, and like, okay, so when it comes to this kind of harness, it like obviously there's harnesses that just go around the waist. It doesn't have to be a full body situation, but the full body situation is more like part of the leather culture, and that's like more of a whole kink thing. So I'm like, okay, are they leather gays? But Che is not in leather, so
they were like reading their script while like it wasn't even.
No, that's later. That's later.
Oh, my bad.
Again, Che's posted up like this on the bed. Yeah,
maybe they forgot to impose that like CGI.
I don't know. Oh, that's a good theory.
But I think it was a finished episode. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, sometimes the headboard is nice and handy for like situations. So maybe it's like, oh, I'm not gonna go full out, but here is me pretending. And it was so interesting. Like this whole episode, we're basically definitely told Che's a bottom.
It's so like that's what threw me off completely, and I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Or maybe they're a switch. I don't know. Like, you never know. Maybe. But it very much gave, like, I was so confused. And I was like, yes, it definitely gave that energy.
Yeah. So, okay. This all gets interrupted because Carrie calls Che, not Miranda, her friend of how many years?
It's like 30 years.
She calls Che, and the reasoning is, oh, like, tell me a little bit more about Franklin. Like I don't know what Carrie was trying to get out of this, but it kind of angered me a little that once again we're seeing the original characters separated, even though Miranda's right there. This is about Carrie and Che, and now Carrie's just putting out her business in this workplace.
I think she knew what Miranda was going to say because it's exactly what her and Charlotte acted out, which is why she didn't. But she also knew how she felt about Franklin. Yeah. She had already been working on this podcast with Franklin for months and months, knew who he was. He seemed like a nice guy, but she just wasn't feeling him. She knew that. So there was no reason, like, it wasn't like she was like asking Che about him before she fucked him. This is like what is this for? Yeah, it was bizarre. Like it made no sense. And I'm like, I couldn't remember if Che and Carrie, like I feel like they had like a decent rapport, but like I would have just called my best friend. Yeah. Like this is not a Samantha replacement. Like I don't.
No, Seema feels, if anything, the most Samantha
is my favorite. She very much gives. She's who I want to be.
Love her storyline in this. Yes. Okay, so one big takeaway we get is that Che's like, well, some relationships are just casual and sex. And you can see like Miranda's lady boner get deflated immediately.
Well,
She said, let me take these chains off. Let me take this harness off. I'm pouting.
it's very much giving Carrie Big energy from like season 1.
Aramide. Aramide. You're right. I did not.
Please, that's fair. It is.
You are right.
Because that's all Carrie would do is like chase after this man. Like the second season, so the first time they broke up was because Carrie, like Big, refused to tell Carrie that he loved her. The second time, this motherfucker gonna tell her, excuse my language, he was going to France down to a business trip. Okay,
Yes.
boo, I'm gonna see you in a week, and then he gonna tell her, oh, I'm moving to France.
Yes.
And she threw a fish fillet at him, and it's what he deserved.
Yeah, and he said, "Don't move because of me." When she was about to follow him, Miranda really packed her bags and was like, "I'm following you."
She packed her bags and her puss and her harness apparently, and booted it to the West Coast. But it's really that's why it's so jarring. I think because we've never seen Miranda do this ever, like ever. I think she referenced in the first season some guy she was in love with and saw him on the street of Sex and the City. We've never seen her in this. And I get it, we all go through these stages, but it's very jarring, especially for someone who's not being reciprocal to you. In some ways, yeah.
The writers really want it both ways with Che's character, which we can get into later. But that was a biggie for me. I was deeply invested in the storyline. So Miranda's like, hey, how about we go to your set, and then afterwards we get dinner. And she's like, that's work, like let's not, but we'll go out tomorrow. And it's like, okay, that's fishy and weird. The next scene is that Seema's with her smoker man Zed. He like stay smoking. Oh, he is yes. Gonna smell like a pack of cigarettes, but fine though. He offers her to meet his son for the first time. He's gonna be in town for one day. Happens to be the same day as the Met. So Seema later tells Anthony, Carrie, and Charlotte, like, what do I do? I'm trying to go to this Met ball. And in my point of view, I'm like, you ain't trying to be anyone's stepmama. Don't meet that man.
That's what I was like. I was even confused because, again, what we know about Seema is like this is not a dilemma for her. Like she can't meet him for coffee when he like in the morning and going about her day. Like why does it need to be this whole thing? This man didn't offer her a ring, a castle, or a lifetime. I'll see you. I'll the little boy. He's 30 years old. I'll see him when he get back to me. It was so strange. Very strange. This is the first time you ever getting invited to the Met. I wouldn't need my sister, and I love her. Like it just was like such a strange. Like it wasn't even a dilemma. Like if you're gonna give someone a dilemma, give them a real dilemma. Like, oh, I have the opportunity to like sell, Anna Wintour a new thing or go to the Met, whatever it is. But this wasn't a for real thing, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Especially because it's been 3 weeks since season 1 ended. So you've known this man she met him at the end of season 1. So she's known him, what, a month?
I don't know how long it's been, but
it's been 3 weeks. It's been 3 weeks since season 1 and season 2. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's ridiculous. But Seema for some reason decides that she's not going to the Met anymore. So now Carrie is open for a date, and then Charlotte tells Anthony, hey, I gotta be there for my husband, so you can't come. And then Carrie's like, you can come with me. And Anthony kind of acted stank of like, ew, I have to go with Carrie.
I don't really know what to do with Anthony's character either, like without Stanford. Because Stanford was like the OG. Like he's been there since the first season. I think Anthony hasn't come in even yet where I am in season 2. So they don't really know what to do with his character. Like even their breakup, and I know the actor was dying, so they have to like figure it out. But they don't know what to do with him at all. Like I loved his bakery last season,
Mhm.
but like put him back in the bakery or something. He just you can't just shuffle him around like a purse. Like it's weird.
Yo, yo. I agree. This was ridiculous. But yeah, I love Anthony. Keep trying to work it out. Keep trying to figure it out. Cause I remember Anthony had a hookup last season. So I'm ready to see Anthony's love life if we have any room. We have a lot of characters.
Yes.
A lot of characters.
For
So
45 minutes.
it's
Yes.
a hard juggling act, but you know. So, yeah. And also, Carrie admits she doesn't want to go out with Franklin. She wants to keep it to sex, the Food Network, and yeah.
Which is fair. I mean, she's, Big's only been gone a year, I think. And she's just like getting her feet wet back into it. And again, it can be very messy. He's her producer on her podcast.
Yep.
So
Very true. Next scene, Dr. Naya eats alone at the bar, and all of a sudden, CSI's green-eyed Gary Durden walks up. He says, "My name is Toussaint."
she said, yes, it is. And so did I.
He's like, you trying to have this molten cake? And she was like, uh-huh. And then all of a sudden she's like, ugh, my ring. And it's just like, girl, you weren't worried about that a second ago.
I think for her, and I think maybe I wasn't clear on how it ended. I know they had that whole blow up, but I just thought that her husband was so insensitive because it wasn't like she wasn't trying to have a baby. They just couldn't conceive. And they had the whole plot of they didn't want kids for years. Then they tried to have kids. But in your 40s, it's just a lot more challenging.
Yes.
And now you want to be off on tour. So let his ass be off on tour. And I think what they didn't do well was like establish what they're are they in an open relationship, are they separated? So it's like she's trying to uphold something and he's not even really picking up the phone for her or something. Like she's steady trying to call him throughout the episode and he's not really answering her.
Yeah. Yeah.
So fuck him,
Yeah.
in my opinion. But that's the Cancer in me that jumped out.
I mean, that's fair. I do think we're going to see Toussaint later. And yeah.
You wouldn't bring Gary in to not be here.
No. So it should be very interesting. Next, we see Che on stage at the Comedy Store. We do not get a full set. Very smart. We get a very tail end of the joke. I think the candor sounded like a real stand-up comedian. It's an easy little joke about LA. So if they continue doing the comedy scenes like this, I'm gonna be happy.
Last season was way too much. Like, oh my god.
That was weird.
I'm also someone like sorry, like shows like that. But so it just was not my tea. Like I came for the fashions and the drama.
Yeah. For real, I honestly forgot Che was a comedian. Like I blocked that out and I was like, oh yeah, Che's an actor and is going to LA for this big job. So it was kind of jarring seeing Che on the stage again. But like I said, I think it went well. So yeah, at the end, Miranda pops up, she hugs Che from behind, and Che is just like immediately, no, I'm at work. And at first I was like, oh, Che might, some comedians have an onstage persona, and that persona is also like got to be a little single. So I was like, maybe that's what's happening, or maybe it really, I don't know.
I hated it. It very much gave Big and Carrie season 1. And for me, and we'll talk about what actually is going on also. It was so strange because the night before, Miranda said, oh, like, I'll just come to your show. And Che told her no, basically. And so it's on one end, I get like Miranda didn't respect their boundaries in a way. But I also think that if you're in a relationship with someone or building something with someone, whatever it is that they're doing, it was just such a stank reaction. And Aramide would have been down to LAX on Miss Delta back to like I don't.
Yeah. You don't need to be a bother to anybody.
Because you can say like, "Oh, hey, boo," like blah blah blah, and then be like, "Hey, like I'm not comfortable with you seeing my thing later." It was just Che's reaction I didn't care for,
Yeah.
and in my golden Dorothy and Sophia years, like I'm not about to be talked to like that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I didn't like it. It very much
No.
gave Big energy, very much withholding, rude.
Yep. It was so I was a little hurt. I was like, oh, I'm not gonna be okay if they break up. Like I'm just not. And I know it probably has to at some point, but I'm not gonna be okay. The next scene, Dr. Naya, which this actor is acting, because like acting drunk is a fine line.
Mm-hmm.
And I heard the trick to acting drunk is acting like a drunk doesn't want to appear to be drunk.
Mm-hmm. I
And
heard
that's
most of them is spin themselves like in a circle several times and then try to act because you do feel like a little nauseous,
yeah,
like
yeah.
when you do that.
But she was like, once again, in her lingerie, this is when you wear your lingerie at home. And Dr. Naya was still hot from meeting Tucson, I'm sure. So she's just like, get on FaceTime. I'm trying to show you something. And he was
After
just
he
like,
declines her call.
yeah, yeah. And he's like, stop, stop, when she's about to make it down south. And he's like, I have someone here. She said, who? He makes a quick turn. We see the way that this white girl was dressed. It's like when you look up Coachella outfits.
Was a like who was wearing a hat in a hotel room at 9 p.m.?
Exactly. It's real try hard, but apparently she's Heidi. And Heidi needs help writing her songs. And Dr. Nia's like, I almost wrote a song with a green-eyed tall man at the bar. So what are we doing?
Like the scene was just absurd. Like not regular man, but most men would have just like shuffled, like, oh babe, like a lie, like at least lie. I don't know. I just didn't like it. I didn't like seeing Heidi. I didn't like his little flippant attitude. I would have been trying to find Tucson because he had me effed up all the way.
All the way.
And it's both of their fault for not having clear
Mm-hmm.
like boundaries. Like I'm just in New York, like pining after my husband. It's very bizarre. Like
Mm-hmm.
maybe they need some real time apart. So then what are the boundaries? What are the levels? But don't be sitting up here ignoring my FaceTime call and showing me white women's in your hotel room. Cause then I'm gonna have to act ugly.
Yeah. 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 That was wild. So wild. Next, Smoke and Jackie shows up at Carrie's place. Apparently, all the seamstresses have a stomach flu and could not finish the actual dress, but they finished a cape. Um, yeah, but Smoke says she got it. She got it. So I and like we see Carrie basically waiting around in her apartment for this to be done, but realistically, she would be in hair and makeup all day. Like
None of it made sense. It didn't even make sense because you could go to any dry cleaner in New York. I live in Harlem. There's 300 of them on my block,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
and like ask them to sew you in. It would have been more realistic if she like gave her something that fit that she hated or something like that. But then
Yeah.
Carrie had this like I was like cringing because I thought she was gonna flip out, which kind of was like first of all, why are we fitting on the day of the Met Gala? Like, why is that the final fitting? But also, like, it was just so uncarry. This whole scenario of her, like, are you done yet? And then this poor black girl, like, trying to sew. So she's a designer, but she can't really sew a dress up. The dress looks ridiculous. It
She
looks like
keeps cussing
crepe
out her
paper.
man too.
Like, also, like, why is he here? Like, she didn't have an assistant, a homegirl she went to sewing class with.
Yeah.
The whole thing was ridiculous.
Ridiculous. Absolutely.
It just would have been different if she like Carrie's like, I don't like this. Like that do that.
Yeah. Later, Che is practicing lines in bed. Miranda tries to cuddle. Che basically snaps and is like, no, no. Finally, Miranda's like, what is going on? Che's like, I got something to tell you. And I'm like, here it is. Here it is. Whatever it is. And it's that Che was told to go on a diet and basically lose weight for this this show so they're self-conscious. And like, I don't like how these writers are playing with my feelings. Because what you mean I'm not able to touch you because you're on a diet? What you mean you're acting funny because you're on a diet? Which wouldn't Miranda know that because she is up Che's booty every day? You're telling me she's not doing any food runs for Che?
I think that what they're trying to talk about is body image and fat phobia. It was the way they went into it because I did
Yes.
end up feeling very sympathetic as someone who also has struggled with body image
Same.
for Che, but that didn't excuse their treatment of Miranda. It also was just like the way that it came out just didn't make any sense. Like I get it, but it wasn't even like we got an inkling of that what that that's what was going on when they were in their fitting. Like we just thought they didn't want to look like a blue Smurf.
I did love Sarah Ramirez's acting in this scene though. It was a different choice, I think, because when Che was turning away, we're seeing them to the camera and like Miranda's behind. I'm like, okay, this kind of staging is usually when like we see a character kind of lying.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like anticipating that, but no, I think it was just a stillness of like really like processing and like sadness, and it came through at the end. So just a shout out to that Tony winner right there. Next, Carrie tells Franklin that she changed her mind, as she's allowed to, about their date, and she admits she wants to keep it casual. He seems perfectly fine with this. So where is the conflict? What was this for?
I don't know. We know Aiden is coming, which is a choice. It's a choice. Again, this could have just been her producing that she was fucking. Like we didn't need to do all these hoops and valleys. There was no drama.
It could have
He
been
just
in the
seemed like
email.
he seemed unbothered. Like this is the man who got on his laptop after he boned you to watch a cooking video. It gave
Yeah.
casual. It's been giving casual,
Yeah.
and they try to make it into much more than it was. To be honest,
Kind of ridiculous, but you know. Seema and Zed go out to dinner. Of course, Zed walks away, and Seema asks the ex-wife when the last time you saw him, and she's like, "At the house. We live together." And Seema, I respect
this
this
is why
move.
she is the baddest bitch. This is why she is this version of Samantha.
She was like, "Don't worry about it, sweetheart. Let me pick up my stuff and take my booty to the Met. Because what you mean y'all live together? And I'm just now finding this out." And then he sees her on the way out. She's about to get that taxi. She told that man, "Don't you wait. Don't you wait. I'm getting in there." He's like, "What's going on?" And then this is very, and it's so interesting because I think, is he in Emily in Paris?
I don't watch that show.
But this is very Emily in Paris thing, because we do find like, oh, it's so French, like the Europeans, they be living together after the divorce, but they're like, we're so rich though. I'm on one floor and I'm on the other. So that's why he throws at her at the end, "You're such an American." And she's like, "Yeah, what about
So, and I'm
it?"
going to the Met Gala. Like, my thing is just like, if you didn't feel no way about it, why just mention it? You had her looking
Yeah.
crazy at this brunch, when she could have been getting her nails polished and getting ready for the Met Gala. And I think that just, it was just like, you had her all the way fucked up. And that's what I love about her. She's never compromised. She's never been married because she's not going to deal with this book. Like, this is crazy. Like,
Yeah.
you've already turned down the Met Gala to go, like, have mimosas. No.
No,
And I'm
no.
so glad because I feel like any other character would have like him and Hod and like Carrie would have like made this. She would like pooped on herself and like made it into a whole debacle. And it didn't need to be like at this. And I shouldn't say this age, but like if you know yourself well enough, like why are you dealing with? Get up. Get like if you don't like it, get up literally and leave.
Stand up and
Yeah.
leave. Love it. Love it. I would like to get there one day. Um, so later, I'm gonna skip Rock and Lily. They're helping out with Charlotte with the corset. I don't think there's really much here to say. Lisa is stressed, y'all, still. and she is in her underwear. She's still looking at work last minute. Aramide, I feel like your workaholic self would be in this predicament exactly.
Yes.
And her husband is like, let me sex you up for 8 minutes. They get out. She realizes she forgot to get the ride share. Um, the reason that they give that she has to walk 10 blocks is ridiculous, saying this doesn't fit in a taxi. Girl, you could take that off and put it right in the passenger seat. But okay, I like the shot we get though. It's a good, just we're doing a lot to get there.
It's a beautiful shot, but also it's like, again, Lisa, are these things that you're putting on yourself? Like, you don't have an assistant, you can't tell your man to, like, because they needed a sprinter. Like, that was the whole thing. They needed a sprinter for our
Yeah.
outfit to fit. And it wasn't gonna fit. Like, this is New York. Like, obviously
Yeah.
it's Met Gala. They don't live far from the Met Gala. So yes, things are congested. It might have been actually easier for her to just walk. But again, I'm trying to figure out if this like independence that she has is like self-inflicted, which I can do that to myself, or is it something like her husband's just like willfully incompetent? Like, I
Yeah.
don't, like, why are you the one having to remember everything? It doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Now something has just popped in my head. Um, some celebrity couples have been in the public talking about how they share finances or split finances. Do we think that's what's also happening here? You know, because like,
Maybe, but I think if we're talking about like specifically that couple that talks about splitting finances, they split finances because the male counterpart
mm-hmm,
told the woman counterpart, "This is
mm-hmm,
my house, so you ain't got to worry about me, sweetheart." Is where
mm-hmm,
her reaction to that was.
mm-hmm,
And I think, like, as someone who's been very in charge of their career and everything, I never want to like feel like I can't do for myself or I can't contribute or whatever the case may be.
mm-hmm.
But if my husband is offering me a penny and a coin, like just like Carisha say,
Pay up, pay up. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm just thinking of like bringing up the assistant and everything. It's like, yeah, why doesn't she have an assistant?
mm-hmm,
My next thought is, well, she's in documentaries. That's not known for like making a lot
money.
of money.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe she's like, I don't have it personally and I don't want to put it on my husband's dime, which is wild.
I think that's crazy, especially because she mentions a nanny, but I don't remember seeing her with a nanny first season. And she's literally doing all of this and like almost flawlessly. Like the
Mm-hmm.
opening of her this season is her talking to her babies, like getting everyone together. So like, pay me.
Yeah,
What does
yeah.
yes Madison say? It's like my favorite meme of all time where she's like, so yeah, that could be interesting if they're talking about like that whole 50-50 dynamic. Like, what does it mean for Black women to like feel like they have to be hyper independent even with a husband?
Mm-hmm.
What does it mean to completely rely, as Carrie like pretty much completely relied, maybe not later, but Big definitely was the moneymaker here.
Absolutely.
um I don't think Charlotte has worked in 20 years.
Uh-huh.
So, what does that mean? And for Black women's, like Naya works, Seema works, so she ain't got no steady man like that. So I think it's interesting if they do it properly. And I'm hoping they will, because I know Samantha Irby is one of the writers and I love her.
Yes, same. Shout out to
Um,
Samantha Irby.
So it could, if they do it right, it could be a very real conversation. But
Mm-hmm.
it's also interesting because you also see so many women, like when things end, they get like nothing.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. It should be interesting. The husband said, "This is crazy." It was a very Sex and the City line to be like, "It's not crazy, it's Valentino." And she's walking down. But something she said was very interesting because she was like, he was like framing it of having that like quickie as it being for her, but she said it was really for you,
Mm-hmm.
like usual. And it was like, oh,
She said she came, which I thought was important, but he had been not hounding her, but he like the we saw them like in 2 mornings. He was like, I miss you this morning, and like the last morning too, even though we had seen them having sex during the
Yeah.
intro. So it's
Yeah.
again, it's kind of like, well, like, are you listening to the baby read her poem? Like, do you know what a boy lacrosse stick is? You asking me,
Yes.
and it's to hang in your clothes. I could have slapped him.
Uh-huh. It's
So I think his reaction is like, baby, I can just give you the money, but that's not. And the same thing with this couple, the celebrity couple, that's not how she receives love. And I think,
yes.
yeah, I'm gonna take you gonna pay my bills if I was in that position, but everyone
Yeah.
doesn't receive love like that, and you have to respect that.
Yes, yes, yes. So, apparently Harry is like, wait, no Rihanna, then what am I doing this for? And like wants to, I guess, last minute quit. And then Charlotte, being the bad friend she is, wants to call up her gay best friend who's watching the live feed of like the carpet getting set up and was like, hey, you want to come over? And he just says, yes.
Because
And
that's
this,
after Seema tells Carrie she's coming back. So like Carrie like booted
yes.
Anthony out of her plus one again. So now,
So wild. So
it's
wild.
ridiculous. And I think,
Like,
but also Charlotte, why you ain't tell this man he wasn't coming using Met Gala? He looked a fool. He looked like the damn Monopoly man.
he did. He did. All right, wrapping up. Seema looks gorgeous. Something Seema loves an earth tone. Seema loves a nice gold and killing it. Lastly, Smoke is like, you can't go out in this dress. It's gonna ruin me. Can you have anything? Anything? And did you guess how this was going to conclude?
I did. And I think it's because we saw a little bit of Carrie's that infamous wedding dress when she beats Big down in the street in the first Sex and the City movie. And she does wear this beautiful jewel cape that Smoke
Mm-hmm.
created for her. But what I was hoping for was like, why did we have this weird lingering in Carrie's apartment for 6 hours when they could have just been shopping in her closet? Like, we know the fact, like, Carrie is a fashion girl, like a fashion girl. Like the girls that I follow in New York, they do fashions. It's because of Carrie. Like we know
Mm-hmm.
she has one of those like fashion, but she can wear fucking anything. Any like this should have not been an afterthought, and it was so strange to see her even in this like more like mature age to just be like, oh, it's all right, Smoke, and like watch this poor woman like sew together this monstrosity that looks like she got from Party City. It was ridiculous.
So ridiculous.
So it didn't. There was just other ways we could have done this and not make this black woman look. Because first of all, I don't know any black women who finally get a break in their career and let it flop. Because how long do we work to get breaks like this?
Mm-hmm.
There's no way this woman would have like shown up to Carrie's apartment with an unfinished garment.
Mm-hmm.
It'd been different. She
Ridiculous.
could have even shown up late, but the shit should have been masterful and finished. It
Yeah.
doesn't. It didn't give. It didn't give black women. It's not none that I personally know of.
Yeah. I don't know. There's so many questions left. But we're at the end of the episode. We end with Carrie walking down the street with the wedding dress, the
Vivian
cape.
Westwood, I think. Yeah,
Okay,
very
yes.
iconic.
And that peacock feather. But all right. So you're predicting that the black women are gonna have a rough of it.
I think so because they have the most room to stretch. I think Charlotte, like despite like her like coming of age with Rock last season, Charlotte's the same woman you meet in 1998. Like she's
Yeah.
ridiculous. Like she gets her happy ending with Harry. Like
Mm-hmm.
she literally looks like she's in the 1950s. She wears these gorgeous dresses. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
Carrie doesn't seem to be alive. Which is fair
Yeah.
because grief is really shitty and really hard.
Yeah.
Miranda, I don't know if she's going to be like, I hope they don't give Che like an eating disorder or something. I don't know what's going to
Mm-hmm.
happen
Mm-hmm.
there, but that
Mm-hmm.
makes me a little bit nervous.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if we'll ever see Steve again.
We have to. We have to.
But I also don't see Aiden like that. None of this makes sense. I don't understand how they're gonna work in Aiden because she fucked with this man bad.
Yeah. I can only imagine she's gonna buy more furniture. I don't know. Like that's all I can see. For me, I mean, there's gonna be a rocky road ahead. I know with Che and Miranda. There has to, but I'm not prepared for it. I will crumble.
I want them to break up.
So please keep watching to watch me crumble, and I guess Aramide celebrate then.
No, it's just because I don't like seeing Miranda like that. That's my G. Like she just seems, but she gives like, is it first season or second? No, she literally gives whatever the third season Carrie when she was fucking Big when he was married to Natasha. That's what it's giving.
Um, I don't agree. I might see the dynamic, the Carrie Big dynamic there, but if Che was married, I don't know if Miranda would move forward with that. So that,
We'll
but
see.
we'll just see. We'll see.
I just feel like Miranda's doing too much work.
All right, guys. Catch us after. Our recaps are going to come up after the new episodes on the West Coast because I am going to try very much to respect no spoilers. Um, and yeah, this is the Black Bi reality podcast for Bi Black Baddies and those who love us.
Can be followed at A Word with Aramide, either on Instagram or the Twitter.
Yes, get that good entertainment coverage and like Aramide's doing amazing celebrity interviews all the time. So, you're welcome. All right. Bye.